Hi, I'm Jeff Brindle, and welcome to the Oral History of the Commission project. And we're privileged today, truly privileged, a pleasure to have former Governor Kean as part of the interview process. The project involves trying to get individuals of consequence to New Jersey, as well as to the to campaign financing and to the Election Law Enforcement Commission. So thank you very much, Governor, for joining us today. Former Governor Kean was governor from 1982 to 1990, and prior to that, he received a BA degree in history from Princeton University and a master's degree from Columbia University. He also taught at St. Mark's School in Massachusetts, preparatory school,
I did.
and at Eagleton Institute,
Yes.
as well. And was an assembly speaker in 1972 and minority leader in 1973. After leaving the governorship, the governor was president of Drew University for about 15 years, and of course was named by and appointed by President Bush to be the chairman of the 9/11 Commission, which was a very important position that the governor had held. I remember, I'm sure you don't remember meeting me, but I remember meeting you. It was in Middlesex Borough in 1977 during the primary election campaign when you were attempting to win the primary, running against former Senator and late Senator Ray Bateman. And if I can just go back to that 1977 campaign, do you ever think in hindsight that maybe it was a blessing in disguise that you actually lost the primary, because then you would go on to become governor, a very successful administration?
I don't think it's ever good to lose. So no, I don't think it was a blessing. But although Brendan Byrne and I used to, we became very close friends, and we used to talk about it every now and then because we would have been running against each other.
Yeah.
And actually, we put out slogans preparing for that race, and I had a bumper sticker that said "Burned up, raise Kean," and he said his was going to be "Kean is not able." Anyway, we would have had a funny campaign, and
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, whenever you put that kind of effort into a campaign, you never really like to lose. But I just thought maybe looking back with your successful.
Well, I never expected to win because I was all the county chairman. Everybody was for the other guy, so I went into it ready to make some points and to talk about some issues, and recognizing the fact that my chances of winning about 1 in 50.
Well, that sure changed in 1981.
Yeah.
And so if we can move forward to 1981, there was an open primary law that went into effect. I think it was actually Brendan Byrne actually signed that law into effect during the primary. And basically the open primary law was one where the political parties could no longer endorse candidates, give them the line, or spend any money on behalf of their candidates. Do you feel that had any impact on your campaign in 1981?
Yeah, it had a big impact because I was never the favorite of the party, ever, until I ran the party. But until I was elected, I never was the favorite, and they were always against me. I mean, I had 3 out of the 21 county chairman the year I won. I think I had 1 county chairman the year I lost. So, and I had, when I elected assembly speaker, I ran against their candidate. So I was never the favorite of the party organization. So the fact that we could have an open primary without putting their finger on the scale was very, very important. I think I might have won anyway in the primary because I won by a big enough margin, but it would have been much closer and it would have been much more difficult.
Right. I think the party candidate at that time was the mayor of Patterson.
That's right.
Pat Kramer.
That's right. Pat Kramer was a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a very good guy and a tough candidate. And I had Pat, and then I had a guy called Bo Sullivan who had a lot of money. And so I was running, and one guy who had the party endorsements, another guy who had all the money.
All
So
the money, yeah. And how many candidates were there at that?
7.
7 candidates.
Yeah,
you
there
had
were
to beat.
seven of us,
Right.
and pretty good people. And we all became pretty good friends. At least I became
Yeah.
pretty good friends of most of them, almost all of them.
Yeah. And speaking of the 1981 election, the general election, I mean, that was the closest, I think, in New Jersey history, with about 1,750 votes that you defeated Jim Florio, who then also later on in '89 would get elected as governor. I mean, that must have been really difficult.
Well, it was
waiting that out.
It was, in one way, it was a very happy experience. Another way, it was terrifying. Happy experience because I came from 30 points behind.
Yeah.
When I was nominated, and so nobody thought I was going to win the election at all. And then we started coming up as the campaign went on. And I think if the election had been held a week later, I would have won by a landslide. If it had held a week earlier, I would have lost.
Yeah.
Because the trend was moving that direction. So I'm very. But then the whole recount business. A couple of things about that. First of all, it was wearing, because what I found out about recounts is that you can change 100,000 votes in a recount sometimes, because people make mistakes. People are human.
Yeah, sure.
But if it's an honest election, the total doesn't change very much because the mistakes are even on both sides. So and that's what happened in this case. A lot of changes, but I actually gained a few votes in the recount. But it was, there was a month at least a month when I didn't. Yeah. I know I was always ahead. I never went behind. I was always ahead, but by a very small margin.
Right.
And that could have changed in one county, even in a couple of districts. So it was that was terrifying. The other thing is, and this is good for New Jersey, as you remember when we had a close election in Florida, there were always debates about hanging chads, and the question whether the Secretary of State was honest in doing the recount and all that kind of thing. We never had any of that in New Jersey.
No.
I mean, Jim Florio and I respected the process, respected the people who were doing the process, who happened to be led by a Democratic governor at that point. I had no question in my mind he'd be fair.
Yeah.
Never. And no question that the election officials were fair. So Jim and I were going to accept the count. We never had any of this business of lawsuits and all that they had in Florida.
Yeah, no, I do remember that time, and it was a trying time, but there was never any question about.
Now, Brendan put a guy called Mike Cole, who later worked for me afterwards, but he was Deputy Attorney General. And Mike was respected all over the state, but Mike in charge of the process, that was it.
Yeah.
Whatever happened, but as far as Jim and I were both concerned, it was going to be fair.
Yeah, and so far, even to today, we've never had any problems in New Jersey with that, kind of thing with elections, right? Well, the governor, of course, went on to have a very successful administration. In fact, you still have high approval ratings. I think there was a poll that was taken not too long ago, which has you as still the most popular as a governor, former governor.
What I like is I always run ahead of the incumbent governor. Whoever the incumbent governor is,
right.
Which has annoyed some of it.
Right.
Chris didn't like that. But,
so that's got to be very satisfying.
I don't think Phil Murphy minds.
Right, that must be very satisfying. That
yes, it is. Well, it is because
remember.
I've had a love affair with the people in New Jersey always, and I guess it's still going on.
Yeah. Well, in 1984, we'll talk a little bit about campaign finance and so forth, which of course is what our commission is, very much concerned about. You signed legislation that brought about greater transparency, particularly with regard to political action committees. And at the time in the 1980s, because done a number of studies through the years with regard to that, and the special interest PACs were really coming on, and it was a similar time to what we have now with the parties getting very weak during that time, and the bill that you signed brought about greater transparency, quarterly reports to these political action committees, which made more information available to the public. So you've always been very much interested in transparency in the electoral process, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Well, look, nationally, I think campaign finance reform, campaign finance laws right now are the cancer on the system. The idea that due to court decisions that you can give as much money as you want to, and in many cases never let the public find out you've even given it,
Yeah.
is wrong. It's just totally wrong, and it's not what we should be doing in free and fair elections. So this was a good step I was able to sign to move forward in New Jersey. But nationally, we've got a long way to go still with this process. And by the way, I wish someday we could go back to the open primary law, because I don't think political bosses should be able to put their finger in the system now or then. So I think those are the two things I'd love to see: a decent campaign finance reform bill now, take national effect, and secondly, an open primary law in New Jersey, so that the people could make the choice and not anybody else.
I believe there is a lawsuit that's being litigated right now on opening the process in terms of political parties.
But the legislature should do it. I remember the courage. I remember when I ran and looking for support, a number of my colleagues in the assembly where I'd served endorsed me over the objections of the county chairman. Now, the county chairman decides who gets on the ticket. So the fact they had the courage to do that in counties like Monmouth and a number of others, I mean, I was very gratified and proud of them for showing that kind of courage. But these days, no matter what kind of courage they showed, the county chairman still could have. You got the line, you don't.
No
matter what the people thought. That's still a stain on the system, I think.
Speaking about disclosure, actually, if we refer back to a public hearing in 2000, in which I still love this line of yours. You kind of liken dark money. That's one of the issues today that I've been talking about for a number of years and so forth, and trying to get reforms to get disclosure of that. But you said at the time, and I love this line, termites getting at, talking about dark money, termites getting at the roots of democracy. Do you still feel the same way about independent groups and dark money today?
No, I feel more strongly.
Yeah.
because it's worse. I mean, it hadn't gotten any better, it's worse. And the idea that people who have no interest in democracy, really, because of their own special interests, can put huge amounts of money behind a candidate without you and I knowing that they've done it or who it is crazy. I mean, we now, unfortunately, it's very seldom that the one with the most money doesn't win. So if you're going to attract the most money, you've got a tremendous advantage.
Yeah.
And I don't mind people giving what they want to give, but I want to know who gave it and why. If you've got some special interest, I want to know what that special interest is. And if you're trying to buy my state legislator, I want you to come out and say I'm trying to buy the state legislature, so everybody knows where that money came from.
Absolutely.
And if that legislature is successful and then votes that way against the public interest, you know that too.
Right.
And until we get a handle on this dark money, we're not going to be there, and that's a very important thing for democracy to get there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Governor, because this is something that I've been writing about and talking about for several years, about this incredible influence of these independent groups and dark money over our process, and
a number of them aren't even from New Jersey.
Exactly.
I mean, that money coming from who knows where, and for what nefarious purpose we don't know.
Yeah. I recall, I guess it was, might have been even going back to 2015, there was a Washington, D.C. Group that was spending in Parsippany primary election, right? And you say,
that's right.
Who are these people? Why?
Who are they? And until you know who they are, you'll never know why they're doing it.
Right.
And that's very important. Democracy, is fragile. And you've got to take care of it.
Yeah.
And we're not taking care of it the way we should. Particularly with this dark money. It's an abomination. It really is.
I mean, talking about money, dark money, I guess in the 2017 gubernatorial legislative elections, $49 million spent by these independent dark money groups.
Hmm.
And in the congressional election the next year is over $50 million spent, and we don't know who they are.
I know, and these people can go to these people who may have very nefarious ideas about what they want, very much against the public interest, and they can say, "You give me money, nobody'll ever find out." How awful! How terrible that is!
It certainly
It's really is just a
it certainly is.
very bad the way we have it right now, and it's, you can't say you're a full democracy until you get rid of some of these practices, and that's the dark money is a big one.
Yeah. We're talking with Governor Kean, former Governor Kean, today with the oral history of the commission project, and again, very happy to have you here expressing your points of view on campaign financing and so forth. One of the things that I heard in Ken Marin, who was your insurance commissioner,
That's right.
and he actually had mentioned to me that the difficulty that you had in raising money, that you didn't like to call people to raise money, and obviously money, as we say, is a mother's milk of politics in a sense, and that was always an interesting comment.
And the campaign manager kept telling me that. Why won't you make those calls?
Right. Why don't you make those calls?
I wouldn't do it. I just didn't like to do it. I can do it for other people.
Right.
I can particularly do it for causes. I mean, if it's something I really believe in out there, money to feed hungry children, or money, some good cause, I can go out and raise money.
Yeah.
But for some reason to say, do it to me.
Yeah.
It's always very.
Yeah,
and I did it very badly because of that reason. I'd stutter and stammer and so on. And I was very fortunate because I had 2 or 3 people who believed in me, and who were able to raise money, and went out and raised it. Because I never, and by the way, I had the same problem when I was president of Drew University. I could sell the university, so I would go around, and I would, if you were the one I was looking at, say, look, I can tell you how great, well, the students, I can tell you what we're trying to do, I can tell you why that those students are going to get a great education if you just give this project.
Right.
And then I'd shut up, and the trustee would say, and we'd like you to give $1,000 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I just have, it's a peculiarity, I guess, but I've always had a great problem for personally asking people for money.
No, I mean, I share your view on that because I had gotten the nomination for assembly in 1977.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. I really had a difficult time
It's a
asking
very
people
hard,
for money.
hard thing to do. I think although some people like it.
Yeah.
Some people really
And
really enjoy doing it, and that's, God bless them. I mean,
and that's one of the complaints that you always hear from people in office, that I always have to, that's what I have to do. I have to constantly call people for money, and I hear that from lobbyists and so forth.
Well, if you're elected, to, let's say, a congressional seat, you are told the day you arrive in Washington that you better come to a meeting tonight to raise some money, because you never know, it's next election's coming right up, and then the amount they expect them to raise is astounding to me, and it just and how.
It really is.
By the way, the first time, I'm an old guy and I ran for office a long time ago, but when I first ran for office in Essex County, I went to our friends and asked them, can you help? Because you have to have some, and we got contributions of $5, $10, $15, $20 or whatever. A lot of them they added up over time, but not to a great amount. But I only had one expenditure, and I sent out a letter to the voters, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was the whole. There was nothing, no advertisements, no anything. I sent a letter to the voters saying.
It was easier sending out a letter than calling them on the phone.
Oh yeah, but I didn't ask for money. So this is a letter of what I wanted to do, and that's to get that letter out. We had to raise money for the stamps.
Yeah.
But it was, it was basically my wife and I using our network of friends.
Yeah.
And now that same district, or the equivalent district now, it can be a couple of $100,000 for an assembly seat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we spent, I think we thought it was a lot, but we spent about $4,000, and I thought that was a great deal of money to spend on an election.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we look at and analyze, the spending in money in the legislative elections and everything else, and I mean, it's not unusual for somebody to spend that kind of money in the legislative district.
And it's terrible, because then the fellow is given the money, comes in later to see you and says, "Can you help me with this bill?"
Right.
And you can you say no probably if you got integrity, if it's not a good bill, but it's difficult when the fellow's
Absolutely.
giving you the money that may have elected you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, getting back to campaign finance, in 1985, there was, when you were running for your second term in office, there's the lawsuit that your campaign filed. It was Tom Kean versus ELEC.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the issue at the time was that local candidates could not include your image or your name on their advertisements, whether they were just the flyers that they were passing out door to door, or sending through direct mail or what have you. And basically, the lawsuit asked for that to be say that was unconstitutional. That your own party's candidates should be able to run along with the gubernatorial candidate. And it was the Election Law Enforcement Commission regulation that prevented that, ostensibly to protect the contribution limits that were in effect. But the New Jersey Supreme Court said that was unconstitutional. And I look at that as really the first positive blow in favor of political parties.
Yeah, I sort of thought that was free speech.
And
that was my
and it's
feeling
free
at the time.
association, free association and free speech.
And of course, I was very popular that year, so the candidates wanted to attach onto me, and they did attach onto me, and I was thought not for them to be able to say they wanted to attach onto me in one way or another. Of like my programs, I didn't think that was the right thing.
No. As I look back, I think you're absolutely right with that lawsuit. Of course, I'm pretty much of a big proponent of political parties.
Yeah.
As opposed to what we have now with the independent groups, and that was really the first effort to try to bring the parties back into the process at a time when the special interest PACs were really starting to take over.
Really take over. Yeah.
And then following that, we had in 1980 the U decision, which actually did away with the California open primary law, which then did away with ours.
Yeah.
And then the 1993 reforms.
The choice, by the way, I was going to win that election, no matter who ran, because I was very popular that year.
Yeah.
And this I didn't expect to win the first time. That time I did expect to win because I was very popular. But it was more than I couldn't take all the money people want to give me. And this made me very sad that my successors didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought there should have been public pressure on any gubernatorial candidate, popular or unpopular, to follow the public financing law.
I think you took it in. Didn't you take it in 1981 also, or?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, in both of those elections.
I might not have won without it, not 1981 without it, because I was, when you're 30 points behind, nobody gives you any money.
Right.
so none of the business group or anybody else was giving me any money in 1981. Yeah. So without public financing, it could be I couldn't have gotten the money to beat Jim, because Jim was started off so far ahead.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. Certainly, I want to ask you about public financing momentarily, but let me just getting back to the Kean case and what it was the first step in bringing back the political parties. Let me ask you. I know your feelings about the open primary law, but how do you feel about political parties in general? Are they good for the process?
Political parties in general have served their country very well.
Yeah.
Countries that don't have strong political parties, when the parties are so weak, you have 20 of them instead of 2 of them. Democracy doesn't look very well.
Yeah.
And political parties has been something that's sort of been superimposed over democracy over the years, but with notable exceptions, they've been beneficial, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they've been good for the system.
Yeah, and certainly, in contrast to the dark money groups and the independent groups that are really not as accountable, they're not regulated. political parties are, even
Yeah,
even
right.
to when
That's
they and how they're organized and when they have to meet, and
Yes, that's
certainly
correct.
with regard to campaign financing.
No, that's absolutely correct. No, I think they're a good thing, and I think we should encourage political parties over these strange groups that come in
Yeah,
late at night.
yeah. When you see how the parties these days, I mean, they're not raising hardly any money compared to these independent groups that
No,
are,
no, they're not.
you know,
Because they're regulated.
yeah, right.
And the independent groups can come to you if you're whoever you are and say, give me the money, and nobody will ever find out.
Yeah, and very often it's, you know, a billionaire or
Yeah, so
that's totally behind it.
yeah, often it's a corporate person who has very strong interests,
Right.
but has customers who may favor the other guy. So
Yeah.
they don't want them to know what they're doing, and this law allows people not to know what they're doing, and that's not right. It's not right for anybody. I mean, everybody should know, including probably the corporation stockholders. Everybody should know what the CEO is doing when they're giving that money. And the same if you're if you're these days we're overstocked with billionaires, and they can privately buy congressmen.
Mhm.
That's outrageous.
I agree.
I mean, that deals with an oligarchy, not a
Mhm.
democracy.
Yes, it's a good term. Yeah, oligarchy.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, we're speaking with former Governor Tom Kean today with the oral history project of the commission, and I want to go back to gubernatorial public financing, which you participated in the program in 1981 and 1985. You still feel it's as relevant today as it was when you were running for office? Is important?
It's important. It's not as important because you got all this dark money sloshing around.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of the candidates head that way because it's a lot of money. It should be important if we had the proper rules regulating and or at least making them disclose the dark money. Then it would be much more important.
But maybe it's even more important with the dark money, because it does at least give candidates of limited means to.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably true. It's probably true. Yeah, but it is, and because dark money generally goes with incumbents.
Generally
because,
does, yes.
Because that's where
Right.
the decisions are being made.
Calculate that who's going to win. And,
That's right. Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
So it's challenging. Needs help, and I think sometimes candidates who don't always have all the advantages. I mean, there may be minority candidates, maybe women women always have more difficulty raising money, and
Right.
if you want, as I do, a lot more of those kind of candidates that come from marginalized groups, then you got to get rid of the dark money.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more,
Yeah.
Governor. Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the 1985 campaign you're in against Peter Shapiro, who was the county executive in Essex County, and I've always heard that it was the most issue-oriented campaign of recent gubernatorial campaigns. Yet at the same time, it was fairly low voter turnout. I mean, it was, for today's time, it was 52%. That's high because it's even gotten low. But for the time, it was probably the very low voter turnout for a gubernatorial election. Do you think did that have anything to do with issue-oriented campaign?
No, I don't think so. I think it was low turnout because people knew who the winner was.
There you go. Right.
People didn't get very excited about it because
Right.
every poll showed me winning not by a little but by a lot.
Yeah.
And so people's competitive juices really didn't get going. And one of the reasons it was oriented was that Peter Shapiro and I were good friends. I was very upset when he was the nominee. I thought he'd be a good guy to succeed me as governor.
Mm-hmm.
President he was a Democrat, and so when he got the nomination, I said, "Well, you're gonna have to run against each other." But we had done a number of things. We came from the same county. We had some of the same friends. We had co-chaired a campaign for county charter reform, and we used to see each other socially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I think people have to understand in campaigns is, if you're friends, and not enough candidates are friends, frankly, run against each other now, but if you are friends and have worked together in one way or another, then it's going to be issue-oriented because you're not going to get personal.
Yeah, right.
Because you know their family, you know their spouses, you know their children, you're not going to get personal.
Yeah, no, that's very true. What about low voter turnout? I mean, since that time, I mean, I said 52% at the time was low for the time for 1985, but now we've seen in recent assembly elections 28% turnout to vote. I mean, that's concerns me. I don't know if that.
People don't think their vote makes a difference.
Yeah.
And that's sad. Yes, they should, but I think that's what it is. I mean, I talk to people, and wish they got to vote. Somebody's got a majority, somebody's going to win anyway. My vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to convince people again their vote matters.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I do, Governor, is I'm an adjunct at the College of New Jersey, and I'll ask my students about that. We'll talk about low voter turnout, and that's the answer that a lot of them give to me, is that, well, my vote doesn't count, and it's.
Well, I mean, I'm a product of some very close elections. And when you mentioned that general election was closest in the state's history, I ran for Congress one time against another close friend, Millicent Fenwick, in a primary. And Millicent and I had a totally issued campaign. Neither of us was gay. In fact, she said at one point, reporter asked her what happened if you lost. She said, "This district would be blessed if Tom Kean was elected." You don't hear that much out of campaigns anymore, but that was the kind of campaign it was. I think she won by, I think it was less than 1,000 votes.
Yeah.
And it was, 690 or something. So in a district of 30.
I do remember that was a very close election.
32,000 votes. So I know every vote matters. I mean, and both sides of the results and low turnouts. And what we need, I guess, is upsets to convince people it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way I upset Jim Florio because everybody thought he was going to win.
Yeah.
We need some more of those upsets.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's true. That probably would
to really
make a
show
difference,
people that the vote does matter.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. Election's not preordained, or the whoever it is, organized labor, organized business, whoever it was, doesn't have a lock on the candidate. In the election, you can't do anything. So I think if we have a few upsets, I think you'll see the turnout go up again.
Yeah, that's a thought that I haven't really heard, but that does make some sense.
Yeah.
Closer elections, and people may say, "Well, my vote does count."
Yes, they do.
Yeah, exactly.
And nobody has to convince me that their vote counts.
Right, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Going back to the, I guess it was the 81 campaign, or maybe it was the 81 campaign, where you brought in people like Jack Kemp, who was late Congressman Jack Kemp. You brought him in to campaign for you, as well as others.
Well, Jack came in a primary.
Came in the right.
He came in
the
the election. He's a good
friend.
Came
in the general too, I think. Remember?
I think he came in the general too. Jerry Ford came in the primary for me.
Oh, right. I mean, you had people coming in for you. I'm sure you think that traditional way of campaigning is probably better than having dark money groups come in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The dark money, it makes me sick. It really does. It's just it's not what all the people who fought very hard to create this democracy was all about. I mean, you look about our founding fathers, and you try to tell them, we're going to get into a situation where people are giving a lot of money without telling even who they are. And it's against every principle that I believe in.
It is, yeah. And I share that view as well. Absolutely. Turning to the Election Law Enforcement Commission for a minute, yourself and all the governors, really, all the administrations have really respected the independence of the commission. How important do you think that is?
It's fatal, because you're the only arbitrator. It's not as if there's a whole bunch of independent folks with some authority around in elections. You're it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important to me, and I expect my successors as governor, that you stay independent. And because somebody's got to be the referee in this kind of thing. You can't have a ball game without a referee. You're the referee.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, if that's one thing I've always been thankful for since I've been there, that our independence has always been respected, because it's absolutely necessary in the kind
Essential.
of role that we play.
Essential.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Well, speaking of independence, as well, one thing, and maybe this is why I think you've always been considered a little above politics, in a sense, as a person above politics. And one of the reasons, I think, is because we talk about in New Jersey's Supreme Court, and there used to be a tradition of basically nominating a Republican, and then the next nominee would be a Democrat, and it would kind of be a balance on the New Jersey Supreme Court. And one of the you certainly carried out that tradition in a very tough decision to support the late Supreme Court Chief Justice Wilentz.
It wasn't tough.
Wasn't tough.
No, because look, if you look at a court, we have in other states some elected justices.
Exactly.
It's a terrible system. Like I said, judged when they run in for re-election on their decisions. So if you're going to make a decision and you think your livelihood in the next election depends on it, that's going to put a thumb on the scale again. In New Jersey, we've always had, so to me it's the same thing if you think you're going to make decisions that are going to affect your renomination.
Yeah.
Bob Wilentz and I were friends from the Assembly. We were friends in the Assembly. But I didn't agree with 2 or 3 of his major decisions. I thought they were just wrong. I still do. And so I was very upset by him. But he had been a good Chief Justice. It's because I didn't agree with his decisions didn't mean he wasn't a good Chief Justice. And so I believe unless you reappoint people based on that kind of criteria, that again they're going to be this weight over the justice. Is this going to affect my reappointment if I make this decision one way or another? And the country was tending that way. There had been a Chief Justice in California called Rose Bird, who I think was all right, but she was very liberal. A Republican governor came in, fired her. I think that's the worst kind of precedent.
Yeah.
I think it's the worst kind of precedent. A justice should be free to make his or her decision regardless of what the appointing authority thinks of those past decisions.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, but Governor, I mean,
And by the way, I appointed 2 justices to the Supreme Court. I never asked either one of them. Both of them I appointed because I thought they were the most able people I knew. One of them also because she was a woman, and we didn't have a woman in the Supreme Court at that point, and we never have had one. I thought that was important. But I didn't ask them how they felt on issues. One of my appointments turned out to be the most conservative justice in the court. The other probably the most liberal justice in the court. I had no idea when I appointed them either one was going to be either way.
Right.
That's the point of it. They were good people, and I thought they'd make decisions we could respect. And they were.
Yeah. But I mean, personally, I think that was a very courageous stand that you took with Wilentz.
Well, my party didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, you took a lot of heat.
I did.
Well,
That's a job. You take the heat in the job.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And there's less heat, by the way, if you've done things you think are right. Then you can take the heat.
Then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, your style of leadership was one of have policies bubble up from the legislature rather than you doing the other way around. And
It's some of each, though.
yeah, talk about that style of leadership a little bit.
I think you're very fortunate if you're elected governor, if you served in the legislature. One, because you understand the process. Just as important, your friends. I had served every position. I was speaker, I was majority leader, minority leader, what have you. In the process, I worked together with all sorts of people, liberals, conservatives, what have you, in both parties. So when I got elected governor, they could trust me. Because they knew they could trust me. They knew my word was good. They knew if I told them something, they could bank on it. And that was a great, great advantage. And so they often would come to me when they had ideas, and I'd say, what do you think? And I'd sometimes say, yeah, I could back it if it's this way or that way, and they'd modify it a bit and put it in. So,
Right.
But they trusted me, and I trusted them. I liked them. I generally, we had some governors I really don't like the legislators. Pretty obvious.
Right.
I liked them. I mean, I really did. They were friends of mine, stayed friends of mine. But for that reason, I never had a Republican Senate. Ever.
That's right. That's right. That's true.
I don't think they ever blocked an appointment.
You
Ever.
picked up some seats, but you never had
No.
majority. Yeah.
No, never had a majority. Assembly did the year in, because the Assembly was running the year in for re-election, so they swept in.
Mm-hmm.
But the Senate never.
That's true. Yeah.
But as I say, they never blocked an appointment. I mean, because I had a good working relationship with them, and when I did things, we did credit together. I'd have them into the governor's office, we'd sign the bill, and I'd say, "Thank you, Senator Lynch or Senator whoever it was. Thank you for the help, and thank you for
Right.
making this bill possible."
Yeah.
We knew we'd had a good part of it. In many cases, it was our bill. The bill would come out of, this is the way the governor's works, the bill would come out of one of our departments or ideas. And then I'd call and say to a legislator, or in the Senate, always a Democratic legislature, because it had to be, do you like the idea? Yeah, it's a great idea. Can I sponsor it? Of course you can sponsor it. And I wouldn't say, and then it was their bill. I never said it came out of the administration. I always thanked the legislator and said it was his or her bill.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd give them a lot of credit to signing, and I'd help them through the process if they had any problem in one house or another. And but it was, I found it was, rather than to announce great programs
Yeah.
and then struggle through the legislature, it was much better to have an idea, give it to a legislator,
Yeah.
and let it come
That's
through
smart.
the legislature. Yeah, the same program, same bill, but
Yeah.
you get your programs through with a lot less problems.
Exactly.
If it was a but it was a Democratic idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't. It was Republican. It came from my administration, but
It's their idea.
gave it to them to do it.
Yeah. Whenever somebody thinks it's their idea. I mean that.
Yeah, that's right. It was, and I never ever mentioned at any point in the process, and still happen to this day, that this or that bill, which some legislator took credit for, really came out of our administration.
Right. Well, it was a successful approach because I mean, you had education. I'm just going to name some of the successes of your administration. I mean, you had education reform, you had environmental initiatives, welfare reform, funding for the arts. You're advocate for the arts, and so a lot of different successes that you had.
Yeah, we did.
During your years.
Yeah, I did. Occasionally I took the legislature on, but not often, and never happily. I never liked to take them on.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like to always, certainly ask people is, do you have any suggestions for me? Because I'm in this position where I have to manage people, and I was very, very, I do remember your approach toward dealing with the legislature. Has always admired that approach. And,
well, it was successful, I think, and but if you like people. If you like people and recognize that, honestly, what party, most of these people go into it for the right reasons. Not 100%, but most of them.
Yeah.
And they go in for the right reasons, and you play to their best instincts, and you'll probably be successful.
Yeah.
Assume they want to do good.
Mm-hmm. So that's very
if-
sage advice.
If
very good
they're
advice.
going off the rails a little bit, you
Yeah.
can gently bring it back on again. But assume they're good people who are trying to do the right thing for the democracy. And
Very, very good advice.
99% of the case, you got to be right.
Yeah.
They really do.
So, very good advice. I guess I would be remiss to not ask you a little bit about the 9/11 Commission, and if there's any recommendations that would be particularly important now that you may, again, Governor Kean was the chairman of the 9/11 Commission. Very, very important role that you played for the nation.
Well, it was a nation had been traumatized in 9/11. There were organizations of families, thousands and thousands of people who had lost loved ones, who were desperate to find out how it could happen in a country like ours. And there was a pretty divided Congress. It was a year that President Bush was running for re-election, and the election before had been decided in some ways by the Supreme Court. So a lot of polarization. But I think the idea that 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats could get together, appointed by the way, by the most partisan people in town. I was appointed by the president, but the other commissioners were all appointed by the minority leaders in the two houses. These are the equivalent of the Pelosi's and the Schumers and all the rest. And so the fact that I think 10 of us pointed that way could over time come to a unanimous report. Not only a unanimous report, but a report that's going to be, with recommendations. 39 of the 40 recommendations were adopted in part or whole by Congress.
Yeah.
It was, I think, very good for the nation. I think they recognized that Republicans and Democrats could come together, could put the country's interests ahead of the party's interest. It's not easy to do, and I ended up fighting with my own president behind the scenes. I didn't like it. We thought we were being too tough and getting information and so on, but so be it.
Yeah, but no, exactly. I mean, that was a very, very important contribution.
And I think, by the way, what worries me now, when we had a January 6th problem, it seems Congress is now incapable of appointing a bipartisan commission. It's really going to work that way. Because I was trying to work with Nancy Pelosi to get it done, and she'd go right up to the brink, and I'd say, no, you got to give the Republican and vice chair equal power with the Democratic chair, and they've got to do things together, otherwise it's not going to work. No, she went right up to the brink and then stepped back, and the Republicans wouldn't listen to it either. So I don't know if they can do it anymore, but.
Well, I've kind of come to the end of the interview. Is there anything else that you'd like to add at this point, Governor Kean?
No, I'm just so happy to see the commission still going strong.
Right.
It's very important for the state and very important for democracy in the state. And I think most of the problems we have are national, not statewide. And if we clean some of those up, particularly in campaign finance reform, I think we'd be in good shape.
Good. Well, yeah, once again, thank you very much, Governor Kean, for sitting down with me. This is going to really be a big boost to our project.
Okay, great.
And I do want to mention that the interview will probably be up in about a week or so, and all of our other interviews are archived and will be archived, so people can go into the Election Law Enforcement Commission website and check these interviews out and look at some past ones as well. So again, thank you, Governor Kean, for everything that you've done for the state and for the nation as well.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.